The morning sun cast long shadows across the Ashford estate as Margaret Chen knelt in the rose garden, her weathered hands gently pruning the late autumn blooms. She'd worked these grounds for 12 years, ever since arriving from Taiwan, and knew every flower, every stone pathway, every corner where the wind whispered through the hedge maze. Inside the mansion's drawing room, Victoria Ashford, the new Mrs. Ashford, examined her reflection in the gilt-framed mirror. 3 months of marriage to Christopher Ashford, the real estate magnate, and she'd already transformed the household. Gone were the old family portraits, replaced with modern art. Gone was the modest entertaining, replaced with lavish galas. And soon, if everything went according to plan, gone would be the one obstacle to her complete control of the family fortune, 9-year-old Emma Ashford. Where is that wretched child? Victoria's voice echoed through the hallway. Emma pressed herself against the wall of the library, clutching her mother's diary to her chest. Her birth mother had died 2 years ago, and in her absence, Emma had found solace in the gardens with Margaret, learning the names of flowers and hearing stories of distant lands. Emma. Victoria's heels clicked against the marble floor. I know you're hiding. Your father has left for Singapore, and we have matters to discuss. The girl emerged slowly, her auburn curls falling across frightened eyes. Victoria's smile was cold. There you are. I've been thinking about your behavior. You're ungrateful, disobedient, and frankly, a burden to this household. It's time you learned some discipline. I haven't done anything wrong, Emma whispered. Talking back. That proves my point exactly. Victoria seized the child's wrist. Come with me. There's an old equipment shed at the edge of the property. You'll spend the day there reflecting on your attitude. Margaret looked up from her pruning as Victoria dragged Emma across the lawn toward the overgrown section of the estate. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She set down her shears and followed at a distance, staying behind the boxwood hedges. The shed stood near a cluster of abandoned groundskeeper buildings, half covered in ivy. But what made Margaret's blood run cold was what she saw beyond it, the old apiaries. The estate had once kept bees, but the hives had been left untended, and now feral swarms occupied the weathered boxes. Last week, one of the other gardeners had been stung badly just walking too close. Victoria shoved Emma into the shed and locked the door from outside. You'll stay here until you've learned your lesson. Please. Emma's voice came through the wooden slats. It's dark in here. Quiet. Victoria looked around to ensure no one was watching, then did something that made Margaret gasp. She took a long stick and began striking the nearest beehive, deliberately agitating it. Angry buzzing filled the air. Then Victoria positioned a ladder against the shed and climbed up to open the high window, the one that faced directly toward the hives. Let's see how brave you are now, Victoria muttered, climbing down. She struck the hive once more, and Margaret watched in horror as hundreds of bees began pouring out, drawn by the commotion and the open window that led straight into the shed where Emma was trapped. Victoria strode back toward the mansion, leaving Emma to her fate. Margaret didn't hesitate. The moment Victoria disappeared around the hedge, she ran toward the shed. The sound of bees was deafening now, and Emma's screams pierced the air. Hold on, child. Cover your face. Margaret shouted. She grabbed the fire axe from the emergency box on the building's exterior wall and swung it at the padlock. Once, twice, the lock shattered. She yanked open the door and saw bees swarming through the high window, with Emma huddled in the corner, already covered in stings, her face swelling. Without thinking, Margaret threw her canvas work jacket over Emma's head and scooped her up, running through the cloud of angry insects. Bees stung her arms, her neck, her face, but she didn't stop until they reached the main house. Help! Someone call emergency services. Margaret burst through the kitchen door, Emma limp in her arms. The household staff rushed to help. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, administering epinephrine and rushing Emma to the hospital. Margaret rode with her, holding the girl's hand as they worked to stabilize her. You saved my life, Emma whispered through her oxygen mask. Hush now. You're safe. At the hospital, as doctors treated Emma's multiple stings and severe allergic reaction, Margaret made a decision. She pulled out her phone and called Christopher Ashford in Singapore. Mr. Ashford, this is Margaret from your estate. Your daughter is in hospital. There's something you need to know about your wife. When Christopher arrived home 18 hours later, he found Margaret waiting with something else, security footage. The estate's cameras, recently installed by Christopher for security, had captured everything. Victoria striking the hives. Victoria opening the window. Victoria walking away while Emma screamed. The police were called. Victoria was arrested for attempted murder and child endangerment. In the investigation that followed, they discovered she'd been systematically transferring funds from Christopher's accounts, and had a history of marrying wealthy men, 2 of whose previous children had suffered mysterious accidents. 3 months later, Margaret sat with Emma in the rose garden. The girl's physical scars had healed, but the emotional ones ran deeper. Still, she was smiling today, helping Margaret plant bulbs for spring. My father wants you to know something, Emma said. He's made you head of estate management. And he's setting up a trust fund in your name, for saving my life. Margaret shook her head. I don't need rewards for doing what's right. He said you'd say that. That's why he's also donating to the Immigrant Workers Support Center in your name. He said you taught him something about true character, that it has nothing to do with money or status, but everything to do with courage when it matters most. Emma leaned against Margaret's shoulder. You're more of a mother to me than she ever was. Margaret wrapped her arm around the girl, tears in her eyes. Family isn't just blood, little one. It's who stays when things get hard. It's who protects you when you're in danger. That's real love. As the sun set over the estate, gilding the roses in golden light, Margaret thought about the path that had brought her here, from a small village in Taiwan to this moment, holding a child she'd risked everything to save. Sometimes the greatest purpose in life isn't what we plan, but what we're called to do when we hear someone crying out for help, and sometimes justice comes not from those with power, but from those with the courage to stand against it.